This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralized, strengthened teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts, Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further, or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world. Hey everyone, are you ready to grow your own fresh, delicious vegetables, herbs, and flowers this season? If you're looking for the highest quality heirloom and organic seeds, I've got the perfect company for you, True Leaf Market. They've been a trusted seed company since 1974, offering 3,000 types of non-GMO varieties, everything from classic heirloom tomatoes and peppers to rare herbs, microgreens, sprouting seeds, and beautiful flowers. All those seeds are open-pollinated, pure, and perfect for home gardeners or anyone wanting healthy, flavorful produce without chemicals. What I love the most is their huge selection, fast shipping guarantees, plus options for bulk if you're going big. If you're excited to start your garden this year with real, authentic heirloom and organic seeds, click the link in the description box below to check out trueleafmarket.com. You won't regret it. Happy planting, and thank you for supporting the channel and this broadcast.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
Hey, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful blue planet. I'm halfway on the other side of the planet from those of you in the States. Well, here in Taiwan, and as of last week, when I was saying there are not very many disruptions out here in Taiwan, that continues, nothing. The fuel prices from, say, 10 days ago, 15%, those are exactly nothing new. They haven't risen the prices anymore. No call to stay home from work. Actually, Taiwan's in the driver's seat for a couple precursors for plastics production, as well as a semiconductor chip manufacturing, hub of the hubs of the center in the world here with TSMC. So a lot of the helium that was disrupted in other places, Micron Technology, Samsung, Intel, that's all coming in here. So I was trying to dissect a few things for tonight. How's this world going to move forward? They keep talking about track trace, but there's no helium to do semiconductor chips. So will this push back those agendas? Going to talk about that. Also, plastics are going to get really expensive. I got some numbers for you. We'll dive deeper into it. 12 cents for a plastic bottle, like a plastic bottle you're going to buy, 12 cents more for that. Anything that comes in like Mylar packaging, potato chips, snacks, this sort of thing, 12 to 15 cents more for each bag. You can just do the math on that and how many things. The saran wrap, or that kind of film coating that they put around burgers, 3 extra cents for every single one you're going to buy. So everywhere you look, there's going to be different price increases. The medical industry for generic drugs totally destroyed. The largest manufacturing plant on the planet, totally destroyed. All the literally 15% of all generic drugs on the planet just got wiped to zero. Plus the Trump tariffs at 100% of anything coming in for medicines. So your medicine's going to get more expensive. Like, we are being repriced. And then we look at Oman and Iran making a joint, contract, for the best word, to control the Straits of Hormuz. They're going to charge an extra $2 to $4 million per ship. That's going to be on top of whether you're moving 2 million barrels of oil or 60,000 containers coming through. You're going to have put that extra price on top of each container delivered. So these taxes and the tariffs and our life is just being repriced in real time. We're never going back to the old world of pricing that you understood. All the new trade deals are being constructed right now. Who's going to get the energy? Who's going to get the fertilizer? We talk about fertilizer till blue in the face. Food shortages are coming. Please prepare for that. That's like a no-brainer. That's a lowest hanging fruit. Plastics is like another low hanger, but the fertilizer shortages are the real deal. That's it. Oil, I think I'm going to run through the Australian thing tonight, along with the New Zealand fuel shortage trackers, and we can take a look at that. But the biggest thing I keep seeing out here in Asia is I've been following the New Zealand fuel to start off. Last week when we first got here, everybody's like, OMG, New Zealand's going to run out of fuel. And they had 23 days of fuel, and they had all these, if they put, heavy rationing in, and they could extend it out by another few weeks. But then I looked on the tracker just yesterday and the day before, and suddenly they have a whole new month of fuel. They're up at like 47 days when they were at 23 days before they run out of fuel. The news will have you believe everywhere's running out. We're going to look at the Australian fuel tracker tonight as well. Australian petrol stations are starting to turn green again. So everything you heard about Australia, they're running out of fuel. And it seems like a planned thing, because if they can get you to believe and also create these fake shortages, then they can institute a lot of these goals of locking down the planet further. This is another lockdown scenario, but these shortages, even though they seem to me, I'm just going to go with it, after we go through the couple hours tonight, I believe still that these are partially artificial. They're distributed and targeted towards certain nations. And I don't believe the news that I'm seeing as just an overall, the planet's running out of fuel. Governments are taking their share first, along with industries, police, military, and whatever crumbs are left over go out to the serfs. And that's when they're talking about fuel shortages. They need to have the shortages to create and then implement a lot of the end of the decade goals here. Got some information for you also about if the unsnarl occurs of all the tankers and they do get released and everybody goes their happy way, you're looking at around 6 to 7 months before things stabilize. So that gives you a timeline. And that's as of yesterday and today. Tankers aren't going anywhere right now. So, just keep that as a benchmark of at least 6 to 7 months of disruption from this point. based on the last month or 5 weeks of disruption. So if this thing drags on, which it appears to do, and I had a conversation with this guy, and he's like, "Man, I've seen your channel," and and he was helping me do something with the phone. He's like, it seems like Iran's losing the war. And I was like, it's not about losing the war or winning the war. It's about if the Iranians can keep the disruption going long enough to give us enough pain and the world enough pain, it doesn't matter who wins militarily. That's not the point. They put in our mind, win or lose the war. It's about who can disrupt long enough to cause the pain point that disrupts or collapses economies. There's no win or lose. It's not like World War II. We win, Germans lost. We win, Japanese lost. And by the way, Trump, that was really just kind of being a rude asshole, the way he talked about, oh, Pearl Harbor, you didn't, shit, that's like almost 100 years ago. Come on, man, behave. 1941, we're coming to 25, 90 years ago. Why don't I bring up something from like the Opium Wars in Hong Kong and make it a thing? Like, should I bring up something that occurred in Manchuria in the 1930s? Should I talk about what happened with Germany in 1917 or something? I mean, geez, come on, man. Like, this guy is just like trying to make ridiculousness. Dude's stirring up trouble. And I do think that we are earmarked in America for an economic collapse on purpose. And this thing is all, and Ransom, I would love for you to chime in. I'm done with the intro. We can wrap into some facts here for everybody, but can you throw that map up again that you just had of the tanker traffic?
Yeah. You know what's funny about the thing? Oh, go ahead. I was going to say
there were 3 LNG carriers, like very large carriers that came through. 2 were laden full, 1 was empty. And they were all Omani flagged, and they were going to some Oman port around that. They were taking the really close route to Oman because they were going to an Omani port. They might unload and then reload onto another carrier vessel and then take it out that way. But these VLCCs that passed, 3 of them. So anyway, I've just been following the not American news on almost everything. Please do yourself a favor, dive through there's news, English news publications in every single nation on the planet. And you should be following places like Al Jazeera. And you should be following places like the Straits Times, so you can see what's going on in the Hong Kong area. You should be going to Singapore, check out what's going on. It's a huge transshipment port. You can check it out Manila Times. You need to see what's going on in the Philippines. Korean Times. You need to see what's going on. Bangkok Post. You need to see what's going on. There's all kind of English language newspapers, and they're really showing you real deal what's going on there. So get away from the American brainwash machine. This rah, we're winning. They're trying to get you into this. We're winning, we're winning. It's never about the winning. It's about the disruption these guys are causing. They're never going to win militarily, but can they cause enough disruption to disrupt your life to the point where you're bankrupt, where you're paying 5 times more for your life and at a degraded quality? Who wins at that point is my question. This is an economic war. It's a little bit military, I get it, but it's more economic than it is military at this point. Who disrupts the most wins.
Well, let's start with the comment from Trump. Recently X, or Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, X, has merged the Japanese Twitter with the American Twitter. The Japanese love that he said that. They said they were tired of feeling awkward about the subject, and they're glad that he said it, because now it's just, like whatever, we can move past that. It's over. It actually went over quite well with the Japanese people, because they took it as a joke, because, he said, well, you guys know about surprises. It was the joke, because they were asking him if he was going to surprise Iran and stuff, and he said, well, you guys, you know about those surprises. They actually took it as a joke, and they're happy he said it, because they were tired of feeling awkward about the whole topic, about bombing Pearl Harbor, and then we bombed them with 2 bombs, and there's been a lot of unspoken tension about that. And now that the Twitters are merged, the Japanese and Americans are very similar, seemingly, about their opinions on most things, and it's blending quite well. They kind of removed.
I will say, I was looking up some Tokyo publications on the political end of things, and they said that rattled the political establishment. Now, me and you on the street, I agree. Everybody was loving it. But inside the political establishment, they were just ripping her and raking her over the coals. Like, why didn't you fight back? Why'd you sit there like a bump on a log, like some sort of like maniacal doll? You didn't say anything. And it's creating a political shitstorm over there. but everybody on the street, I agree, it was like that. But in the political ends of things, it's chaos yet carefully managed at the moment. You know how they are with mianzi, or like the face, and how everything perception, it's all normal.
I was just basing that on the post coming out of Japan on Twitter. The everyday average people seem to, they're like, good, because I was tired of feeling awkward about it anyway. So now that's we can put that to bed and move on. And like I said, the American and Japanese Twitter are blending harmoniously. We agree on a lot of stuff, including some political ideas like immigration and other things. Um, and I think it's good. But let's get into this the war economy, because that's what they're about. They're giving us the war economy. Despite the war, the economy was going to be tanking anyway. It looks like, because everybody was renegotiating, and you're seeing headlines like this one right here. The Strait of Hormuz power struggles threatens fertilizer and ammonia trade. That's really what everybody's looking at now. But it's funny because you've been talking about this for years, and mostly the mainstream media has all but ignored these things when it comes to supplies and what that means for later. It means less food, less production, and more costs on the products that are out there, or the products that are getting passed around.
Wait, I got a number for you on this. This year, they're expected 20% reduction globally in all food produced, just because of what's happened so far. So put that as just like a little factoid. Put it as like a feather in your cap. 20% reduction of all food produced this year is what they have officially kind of agreed on.
Well, what's funny is we've been talking about it for years. There's been a steady decline in the production for several years now, from COVID to now. So it's not like a brand new thing. It's just intensifying now. And I have a feeling this summer we're going to be seeing lots of 70s style optics, including going to the moon. That fits right in there with the whole optic of the times that we're living in. And there's a lot of rumor about us going in and seizing land.
That's the same article I was talking about, the patented drugs on the 100% duty right there.
Yeah. And this was already the plan, if you had been paying attention to Trump, about 100% tariffs on just about everything from everybody. This was kind of where we were going anyway, despite the war. But what's funny is they're talking about taking land from Iran. And I wanted to go back to this map over here. This is what we're going to be fighting for right here. These two islands. That's it. We're not going to be setting boots on the ground and massive deployments. There's reports we're going to go try to take the uranium. I can tell from watching these people for a long time that that's a lie. We don't know where their uranium is, if they, or really how much they have or anything. And we're sure not going to televise that we're going to go in for a specific target, because they would know we were coming, obviously, and move it around and stuff. So that's obviously kind of a fake headline that they're pushing out. However, we are going to put boots on the ground on these two islands.
Those two smaller islands too. If you zoom in on those two smaller ones off Karg there, those smaller ones to the south and a little bit those two. Zoom in a little more on that.
We're going to
just go up there. Yeah, that larger circle one right there. Yeah, that one. And then the one a little bit to the south and west down there, that's just off Karg, straight south at the 6 o'clock position.
Right. Yeah.
Those two, I've seen some scenarios of American trying to control those two specifically, because then they're right there where like the big guns can be right on the strait. So those two little ones are really the ones they could deflect and say we're going to Karg, but really their optics are on those two little pieces of land. And if you know anything about little pieces of land like Iwo Jima, and I can't believe that I'm just not going to say it here, family friendly YouTube, keep the advertisers coming. But that Lindsey Graham bleep, 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 bleep is like, we took Iwo Jima, we could take these islands. And I'm like, dude, do you know the cost it took to occupy and take Iwo Jima? You willing to sacrifice that many tens of thousands of Americans to take those two little tiny ass islands? In this day and age, there'll be 60,000 of our troops who get killed to take those two little islands if it was like Iwo Jima. And the number of injured as well.
Well, this same guy years ago was talking about we needed to nuke Iran. I mean, and this was when we weren't even at odds with them, other than him not wanting. I mean, because we've been wanting to do this for 40 years. There's a whole party and a group of people that have been wanting to annihilate Iran, and I think it has a lot to do with it not involving itself in World War II, having the peace treaty that ended World War II in Iran, actually, and the renaming of Iran from what it was before. There's a whole lot of esoteric stuff going on there, but besides that, um, these guys like Lindsey Graham, think about them. They make I'm gonna say billions. Them and them group of the group of friends, not him personally, but the whole group of friends. They're all about the same. They have no real family. They have no children. They're straight warmongers. And while he's telling you and it's okay, it's a good thing that your kids go over there and fight for our country. He's going to Disneyland. He's partying. And I wanted to get into the investments because I there's a big thing that I think is about to happen, and you've seen a couple of them, like and I'm going to say it's fake price gouging, where they nod to the public that this is going to happen. They wait for the investors and everybody to respond, and then they do the opposite so that they can shortchange a bunch of stocks because they know what's going to happen. And this is about to happen in the military industrial complex because, believe it or not, all of the military industrial complex stocks have been dropping. So they're scaring people out of it. They're making people sell it off. And once it gets down to a really cheap price, a bunch of these neocon backed people are going to buy up all that stock again and then repush for the war, making them billions and God's unimaginable amounts of profit on rebuilding, on contracts, on all this stuff. It's all planned. And this is part of this is funny because, a lot of people forgot about the Agenda 2030. But if you go back and you read some of the, goals that they had for that, this is all necessary to accomplish that.
Now, remember, there's no central bank in Iran that's controlled by what you consider central banking around the planet. There's only, I think, 3 countries left on the planet that aren't controlled by Western central banking. Who are they? Well, Russia, China, Iran. They need to try to bring them under control. Now, you could say, well, yeah, that's an outlier point, and I get it, but it is an outlier point that is definitely worth some validation because after 9/11, there were about 8 or 9 countries that didn't have central banks that were controlled by the West, which would be Libya, Iraq. You start to check those Syria, like Assad or Assad. He wasn't part of it. He didn't want the central bank. Why would you need a Western central bank to control your money supply when you can control it yourself? Like, it didn't make sense. They didn't have Western control banks, and then suddenly we overthrew them, and boom, suddenly Western control in there, dollar dominance. You can sell your energy, your resources all in dollars, and that's just, it's an outlier, but it's valid. So if you start to look at this, don't just think it's because of one excuse they gave you. There's other excuses and other motivations out there. I mean, look at the amount of land that's so vast with resources. I mean, they haven't even harvested but percentages of the possibilities of the mineral resources, the energy resources. It's one of the most resource-rich places on the planet, period. With Russia and Iran, what do you think? You go up to the north, you got the whole Caspian Sea basin. That's just like one gigantic oil field that stretches for thousands of miles on any direction with the gas in the periphery, oil in the center, gas in the periphery. Then you got all the minerals, because if you look at that on the map, if you really go out to like Google Earth and you look, it very much looks like it was a wash basin or something when the planet tipped over. And, heavier, if you understand about mining and sluicing and this sort of thing, like all those heavies go in the sluice box, and it looks like a very large sluice box for the planet. So heavies would have gotten stuck in there, and then over the subsequent whatever thousands of years of on top. So it's very not very deep. Apparently, a lot of these mineral deposits are right at the surface, can be done with strip mining compared to deep mining that we have to spend an enormous amount on. So whatever's in Iran, it's a very special place. It's been like that crossroads. Like if you look at the crossroads routes of trade and transportation, if you go back just even as long as history can be recorded, Iran is a very important crossroad of trade and transportation. It has been since the beginning of recorded history. So why is it any different today? It's not. And Afghanistan and the Khyber Pass, that's another one. That was since the beginning of recorded history, the Silk Road, talking about going through these areas. And if you look up in Kashgar, what pops out in Western China over into the stands like Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, that time immemorial has been another trade route. So you start to look at these things and go, all right, well, the dominance of these trade routes in the modern day, we can lay rail down. We can put pipeline down. It's just no different than walking camels across the desert. Now we've reverted to trucks, and now we're reverting to rail. So it's just like we're spinning the clock in different eras of time, but the same logistical points are still valid as transit points for goods, energy, armies, and whatever else. And the money would flow with that too. But Iran particularly is using the wrong kind of money, according to America. They're selling things in yuan. They're taking gold. They're selling things in rubles. Oh my gosh, you can't have that. The competitors to the dollar. Now, another thing, looking at this, like us in America, the dominance that we had, like nobody trusts American agreements anymore. So there's a huge, huge, huge step back. Like we bulked on Iran twice. Like the day before we attacked, they were ready to have a deal with the IEA come in there on their nuclear side and say, all right, you manage the nuclear materials. We don't want to deal with all this. The very next day we attacked them. So, and then we've done that twice. So nobody really trusts in American diplomacy anymore they will keep our word if it comes to some sort of peace treaties. Like, they're all talking right now about, hey, we need to stop the war, back off. They're just going to restock the military supplies and go at it Iran a third time. Like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, or excuse me, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Right? They're at the twice already. They're not playing it again. And the existential threat that America and Israel has pushed against them, we're going to take your energy, we're going to depose your leaders, we're going to install our form of government in there and our banking system on top of you. You'll have to abide by our rules and your vast 7,000-year Persian empire and Persian culture. And anybody who doesn't agree, we're just going to put you in the gulag and execute you. That's what the messaging is. So the way it looks is you're going down to the grandma with the butcher knife in the house before that happens. Right? Like, nobody's playing here anymore. They already realize that if they surrender or have some sort of agreement, they themselves as Iran as a nation will no longer exist. Their culture and the people as Persians will no longer exist. It'll be obliterated like the Native American Indians, right? This is the point we're at. Again, it's just 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, whatever chapter in history you want to look at. They're going into complete domination and annihilation and removal and absolute dustbin of history of that culture. And everybody can see it for what it is. Plain as day, you can see it for what it is. So they're not going to stop this because they have disrupted enough that they know they might not win with enough missiles and airplanes and stuff. They get it. But if they can keep disrupting the energy and the precursors for plastics and wiping out transit routes for our medicines and the stoppage of fertilizer, eventually the pinch point out in the rest of the world and be like, whoa, 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 we need to stop. This is getting too painful. Who can outlast who? Like, look at a big, giant American army. How long did it take for Vietnam to outlast us? The number of casualties. Dude, they were using like punji sticks with bamboo spikes outrunning a full American B-52 bomber fleet. That kind of the thing, just the rudimentary warfare of, the troops are stepping on bungee sticks, where the troops are getting killed by landmines, come up out of the tunnels, hit a bunch of them and jump back down. And we got this behemoth multi-billion-dollar war machine and they're winning with bamboo sticks. You put it in perspective, that's truly the way it was. They outlasted us. The animosity at home of how you keep getting our guys killed and there's really no communists over there. You guys made all that up. What are they going to do? A bunch of guys in the jungle are going to overthrow America. Oh, it's the next domino to Thailand, whatever. You kept seeing that again and again and again. And then Pol Pot and his whole, cultural revolution thing down there with Khmer Rouge, we didn't lift a finger and 4 million people died down there. It's just like, they keep seeing it again and again through history that you can just outweight America. Korean War, we didn't ever win that. They outlasted us. People back home got super aggressive. Hey, man, you got to stop that war. That's accomplishing nothing. We're spending money. Our guys are getting killed. Our stuff's getting more expensive, and we've achieved nothing. Ooh, you got a line there now that's heavily landmined. It's tripwire force, 2 million guys going to fight it out all over the landmines. Just go back. We have not really won anything since World War II except the domination of global banking. by force, no less. But you can see at the end of this thing, if Iran can outweigh us, then our dollar will be, our dollar is going to get super strong here for a minute because everything else is collapsing. I want, and I do, as I say, I wandered through all these news feeds the other day. Went to the Philippines, and you know where the number one news story was? Philippine peso, lowest ever for exchange rate. They were up above 60. You go down, where else? Indonesia, the rupiah down there. It was 17,500 for a dollar. When I traveled there last time, it was 10,000. Japan, they're above 160 yen for a dollar. Korean won, highest ever as well. Like their exchange rates are blown out. Their money is worth so little as this thing goes on, but the American dollar continues to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So America will be a beneficiary of monies in the beginning, but the amount of money we need to print to continue this, I'm not even going to call it a war, this intervention to capture resources and install a banking coup into that country. Not about stopping anything. Look at the track record of these guys. They never invaded other countries. Like, who's invading all these countries around the planet? I think we invaded like 35 or 36 countries since 1950s. And Iran, 0. I don't know. Call me crazy, pointing out the facts. It's almost like looking at FBI statistics and say who commits the most murders. Oh, can't talk about that.
Well, they're not angels over there. They've been, poking around being a proxy for Russia and China for some time. But what's funny to me is that, I was watching Trump the other day talking about how, we just really aren't going to have money for certain programs, for certain things, for like,
see that bigger,
Medicaid and Social Security and things like that, because we are in a war economy. Now, this article breaks down, they've already spent $45 billion. And if you break that down to each like citizen, they're spending about $4 a day, 3.8 per person per day. Now, if you think about this also with the price increases, this is like those little commercials that come on TV that want you to donate to the save the pets or help the veterans or
Sally Struthers. I can save $1 a day, but hey, we're spending $3 a day on a war. 2 kids aren't going to get fed.
Right. They've already figured out how much disposable income you have. That's why each one of those will ask for about 63 to 64 cents a day, because they know that's about a $20 bill a month. Now, what they're doing here is that the warmongers have figured out that, they'll just up a little bit of your price per day until you've decided that you've had enough. And they're already doing the calculations on it. So we're talking $4 per day just to pay for the war itself. That doesn't count what, you're going to pay extra at the pump or what you're going to pay extra for the bags at the store or, all of that other stuff that's going up in price that's petroleum based. So think about if you're working in, say you're a guy that does that vinyl siding, because I used to do that for a living. And, we would have little issues over in the Middle East. And as soon as that would happen, the prices of, all the yards, you'd buy it in big box of like a couple yards of that at a time, it would go up exponentially in price for months at a time. So we would have to wait to contract jobs until the price went back down so that we could actually make some money off of, vinyling a house with the vinyl siding, because it would just skyrocket in price. Plus you'd have to pay more for gas. So that's what they're about to start doing. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Defense stock take epic fury beating, leaving UBS asking why. It's not the only company. And anytime I ever see a drop all the way across the board in something like this, I know that some people are about to make a lot of money because they're about to buy up all of these stocks and things that are cheaper than they have been for some time. Think about it. Here's the beginning of Operation Epic Fury. And then you can just see that it's going down and down. But somebody's going to buy that up.
You think would occur, right? Like you think those weapons stocks would be increasing, but yeah, somebody's shorting that on the way down. They know when the turnaround point is going to be.
Right. And
they're going to hit it going north.
This is right in the face of the U.S. and all of these companies talking about that they're going to be outputting 4 times the normal amount of missiles, and bombs and things like that. Not doubling it. You know how people always say we're doubling the effort. No, we're going to quadruple it. So that tells me that these people are about to make a huge amount of money. And the investors that were shy, or maybe they were anti-war, or they were worried that things were going to happen with these companies, they're all leaving or selling their stock, which is going to allow the profiteers to buy it all up at cheap prices. And I think you're about to see, we have seen this where they manipulate the gold and the silver prices, and then one day, it'll go up or go down, and then a bunch of people buy all of a sudden, and everybody else is clueless. It just happened overnight. You didn't know what happened.
Yeah, let me share a screen with you too. I got one on airlines with you here. If I can find it. Oh, there it is. Hold on, I'm trying to run two screens here at the same time. My eyes are not that. Where is my tracker? Hold on. Oh, there it is. This comes off the Daily Mail, and the headline on this one, if you're going to be looking for yourself, can you see it? It didn't come. Oh, there it is. Airlines could start going bankrupt within weeks amid Middle East chaos with bookings down, that sort of thing. All right, so the basis of the article, let me see if I can widen this out a little bit more here. There you go. What they're talking about is during COVID, there was a huge amount of consolidation in the airline industry, and those companies made record profits. So they're saying the same thing here. Whoever survives the jet fuel shortages that will sweep the planet, and are sweeping the planet now. I've seen this whole thing about Philippines keep saying, if you come down here, you got to bring your own fuel to get out. We can't refuel your planes, so you might get stuck here. Right. So carriers in Europe and Asia have already raised ticket prices. And it depends on where you're going, actually. If you're heading anywhere, the Philippines, Indonesia, Singapore, you're going to get banged with a higher price. You're going up to Japan, you're still okay. Korea, higher prices. Taiwan didn't raise anything yet. So these two places seem to be sort of like staving off a lot of it. But here's the thing. They're talking about Qatar Airways, Gulf Air, Fly Dubai, Air Arabia are trying to cut costs as they lose millions of dollars in revenue every day. So the cancellation rate is down 63%. Obviously, nobody wants to fly to a war zone, but if you're kind of that maniacal person, you can get a discount. If you ever want to go to Dubai, you should go now. You can get things at almost nothing. There's images. Look at the image of the airline. Like, this is the flight to Dubai. They're still running it, but there's hardly anybody there. Right. And then the hotel rooms also are just like bargain basement hotel rooms where you can get stuff for literally pennies on the dollar. So if you're feeling that you might want to go that direction, it'd be a great time. There are really not many people. The food's a little more expensive because they're air freighting the food in. They're still having the air flights. They're bringing in 180,000 pounds of food per airplane still. The ships are not going in with food. So there's an air rescue, much like there would have been in West Germany or whatever, East Germany. Think about that in Berlin, the Berlin airlift. It's something similar to that, where Iran's saying, we're not going to shoot down your aircraft right now, so take your planes in. 3-4 planes go in at 180,000 pounds of food, and that's what they get. So the food prices are rising, but your airplane tickets are tremendously cheap. Your hotel is nearly free. They can't even get but like 5 or 6% occupancy. So there's just this incredible discounts right now if you want to go to Dubai. Now, if the war ends and you're still there and you could book out for a month and get like, a chilled spot and hang out on the beach there. Oil slicks are coming pretty soon. They're starting to hit a few of the ships that are fully laden. So they're worried about environmental damage from oil spillage. So what do we got here? Increasing evidence of oil demand destruction. Yeah, that's true. Going to get priced. So what'd you find here? March 10th, Thailand orders civil servants to take the stairs. Well, dude, they got like 40-floor buildings. Are you telling me somebody's going to walk 40 floors?
We're going to see them with those buckets and the pulleys pulling people up to the floor like the homemade elevator. No, what I think is actually part of what's going on that people don't see is that there was already a planned implosion of the airline industry. That's why you've been seeing a lack in not only inspection. I mean, and I've seen this. we've talked about this before, but it's been coming for a long time. There's been a lack in inspections, quality work. They've had all kinds of problems with employees, and I'm not going to get into that. But there's been a lot of accidents and mess ups for the last 5 years, especially. And they've been talking nonstop about replacing all of this with AI. Not only the pilots, the air traffic control, but they're going to have to rebuild airplanes for the new economy, which is going to be a completely AI controlled. And it only makes sense that they would try to weed out and get rid of most of the competition in the airlines so that only a few of the bigger airlines are there at the end to control the entire skyline. I mean, basically. So this a
And
lot
wait,
of
you're
this
not
stuff
supposed
is
to be flying anyway. You know, by 2030, you're only going to be flying once a year on a short haul flight. Right.
right.
That was the whole plan anyway. This whole, if you think this is organic, like Ransom rightly points out here, this was a plan anyway. Because look at the 2030 goals at the end. You were going to fly once a year, and if you were going to, you were limited to one bag, one carry-on, one luggage only, not two anymore, even if you're going international. So that was the plan. And, you know, all these things are just checking the box after the box after the box on a fast track to get this thing done because nobody did it. And, you know, I want to mention something about 2019 also. The banking system in the world was going to collapse literally because of the lack of liquidity. And then suddenly the COVID came in 2020 and gave them an excuse to print unlimited money. Nobody questioned anything. I think that has run its course, and we're back at the no liquidity point again. So this needs to come in to explain away unlimited liquidity coming back in the system. Well, for unlimited liquidity means inflation. So to go to 2019, I encourage you to look with the banking repo crisis. That was the overnight rate and the overnight lending structure where one bank will put up maybe $100 million into the global system, and you borrow it for 24 hours. And you got to repay it the next business day. Well, that was drying up to no banks trusted any other bank that they could get paid off. So then they had to move over to the government bailout funds. Well, that ran totally dry to the point where we didn't have any money, even as a government, to put in to help these banks to continue the banking system. That's when that was going to break, even at worse than 2008. And suddenly the vid comes and we're able to print endless money. Now we've run that course, and what's happening now? The war comes, we can print endless money. So I know we're truly at the end of the system. They're going to switch systems on us here into the digital system here. This is the end play right now. So just understand that. Just position yourself correctly.
Well, it's not just like one specific industry. If you go into any industry, just pick one.
All of them. That's the whole thing,
Right.
Ransom. You hit it, man. All of them are having the same restructuring going on, every single one at the exact same time right now.
Right. So you see this headline right here: Beyond Oil, Strait of Hormuz power struggles threatens fertilizer ammonia trade. And then if I take you over here to this NPR article where this farmer's talking about, fertilizer that was selling for 500 a ton before the war is now costing him 850. So what is he going to do? Less planting, fewer bushels of corn, fewer bushels of soybean are going to be put in the ground this year because they don't want to eat the cost. And what does that mean? It means that all of the grains and things are going to go up in price.
I'll correct you a little bit on that. They are not going to plant. I've been reading a lot of ag news, and these guys, instead of planting fewer bushels and taking the loss, they're going to plant zero because for them, it's not worth it. You're going to do farming's hard work. I'm telling you. Right. And they're not going to run an entire season at a loss, knowing they're going to go to a loss before they even go into the season. That's called insanity. Well, unless our government gives them huge subsidies, like way above what we're giving them now, those farmers are not going to plant. I would expect, just because of this and the loss of farmers, that we're going to cut American production 30%. Some of the numbers are talking, if these farmers don't plant because they're going to go below break even, they're not going to plant. Like, why would you waste the time knowing you're losing money every day? Like, that's like you going to work and then you're losing money and you have to pay to go to work every day. Like, who does that? Nobody.
Right. So only the bigger players are going to even plant anything. And this is
the
the same
100,000 acre operations are bigger. Those are the ones that are going to get and survive through this. The smaller ones that are running 5,000 acres, unless they're getting on a contract grow or something like that. Specifically, I know some guys who do dairy out in California. They go for the smaller guys, like 5,000, 10,000 acres, and they give them a contract. You grow this kind of corn for our dairy cattle in California. We'll get rail transport for you. Again, that's all private rail transport, and they got their own carriers and everything. But you grow it for us. We guarantee you a price. and you get it to us. And that's all they use, the 5,000 to 10,000 acre growers. Other people don't have that luxury of getting a contract buy. So they go market price.
Right. So even if
they're not growing, they're not going to grow.
If they're not growing nothing or growing less, all of the little players are going to be out right there. It's talking about their costs going up, and there's no guarantee they'll get their money back. But if you look down here, court records show farm bankruptcies up 46% from last year. That's half of the farmers. I mean, right now are getting bankrupt. So you can see that it's not just one or two industries. They're all kind of going in that era where the people are getting replaced by the bigger corporations. And I'll get into it in a minute. And, you know, our prediction
of up for you there. I want to see how many farms went bankrupt last year.
Right.
No, that's a very significant thing. No farms you don't eat. Please understand that you're going to need to grow your own food. If these farmers aren't producing, you're going to have to create your own proteins. You're going to have to create your own oil sources, your fat sources, and your veg sources. You're going to have to grow your own feed. You're going to probably need to wild forage nuts and stuff. No food, no civilization. We don't even have the Civilization Cycle podcast. No food podcast. You know what I mean?
Right. I was trying to find this other one.
So a simple query, I'm just putting into Grok. How many farms filed for bankruptcy in 2024, 2025? That way we can get a number. So when it says 45%, then we can gauge that number off of this and see how many farms are going to go out of business. So here's an interesting one too, because let me see if I could toss this up on the screen for us here, Ransom. Let's see, we're there. Let me get this one here for us. Just so we got some solid numbers to look at versus guessing on it. So here we go. And again, I'll try to increase the screen size so we can see it a little better. There we go. Okay, so 2024, 216 farms filed for Chapter 12. That's a little bit different than Chapter 11, which is a primary business or like stock market listed business. 55% increase from 2023 and ended a multi-year downtrend, meaning that less farms were going out of business. The peak was 2019, 599 filings. So 2025, we had 315. And you're saying another 40% increase on that.
Yeah, there's where you're, it's right there, 46%.
46% increase came from. All right, so we had 315 farms. Let's say they're average 10,000 acres or 5,000 acres. Do the math on that. Yeah?
In my head.
That's millions of acres that have gone offline and won't come back. But again, you know, these bigs will probably swoop that and buy them up at, you know, pennies on the dollar at these farm auctions. So somebody who had an operational farm of, let's say, 10,000 acres that had been in their family for 5 generations, they'll declare bankruptcy, and somebody like, I'm not going to name names, but the bigs in agriculture lawsuit, you got to be very careful. Allegedly, they would purchase these. Allegedly, they do this business practice, would allegedly come in and auction and buy these outright cash for literally pennies on the dollar. So let's say the farm and the equipment and machinery was worth, say, $30 million. They probably had debt worth $10 million, and they were going to come in and sell it. The proceedings in the auction, and they give them, like, say, pennies on the dollar. These guys are lucky to walk away with a couple million or even break even after these auctions, which is sad because the equity and the actual value of their property and machinery and houses and drying and storage facilities are way higher than what they owe in debt, right? So if they declare bankruptcy, it means they couldn't make enough money from planting last year's crops, or 2 underwater. They don't have enough available, because you can't just sell a grain storage facility like I can sell an ounce of gold. So then the bank will say, no, we're not going to lend you anymore against your assets because we've already lent that to you the last 5 years in a row because your crops are failing every year. Then they get pinched to this point where they can't borrow any more money to pay back what they owed for last year's seeds and the fuel costs and all these things that they're running into. At that point, they have to declare bankruptcy because they cannot operate. When they come in, a $30 million farm, total asset value of it might be sold for as little as 10, 15 million. And then then the debts are paid off, and they actually get sometimes at break even or a little less. Some of them might even lose money and have to still owe and have wages garnished and things garnished in their future lives based on what was sold or not sold. It's such a scam the way they do that. It's not the actual value. So let's say, like in my area in Tennessee, prime farmland on acreage where you can till and plant is $12,000. The bank might actually reel it back and then give them a percentage and sell it to the bigs at 8. So they're losing $4,000 on every acre. Now multiply that out by 10,000. Like, wait, that's millions that's lost just on the valuation of the land that gets sold, purchased, and it's all on SAer. So they could come in. What if they're part of or sitting on a board seat and have a cousin who's the person who goes out and values the land, and it's part of this whole circle jerk that goes on with this corruption in the farm industry. Like, really good people get put out of business and everything's stolen from them. It's sad to see it. And just the way the farm business bankruptcy operates. These guys that come in to buy it, I'm not going to mention the names, they have unlimited pocketbooks. And the vast staff and the vast amount of backhand bribes, that's why I'm not mentioning names, we'll get these people to come in and undervalue the land and undervalue the equipment and write down a lot of the, let's say, depreciation on the farm equipment. So it's already at full depreciation where, we're going to give you, it's only worth 30% of what you bought it for. But really, it's still a full functional machine. But we'll give you 30 cents on the dollar for that when you really should be getting 80 cents. Like, it all depends on how the valuation's given. And whoever's in whoever's pocketbooks that comes out to value everything in the auction, they win. Because most times they'll come in and go, we'll take everything, here's a check. They're not going to piece it off. It doesn't happen. It used to happen like that. You come in and piecemeal that place off, or somebody who needed a dryer, they could disassemble things and then bring it out and then take it to their land and do things. But now it comes to one of the lock, stock, and barrel, boom, one giant lump sum for everything. And most times, these larger producers, it's too inconvenient to go and loop around a house or very small storage facility. They just bulldoze it down because it gets in the way of their GPS when they're running on 100,000 acres. Oh, they just added 110,000 acres. Excuse me. They just added 10,000 by stealing these people's land at a fraction of the value. So they bulldoze most of the stuff they buy anyway because it interferes with the GPS when they're running on long rows. Like some of these rows, I kid you not, like 2 miles long. Like, you can't eyeball that. It's GPS driven. You can't eyeball 2 miles in the distance and make sure your rows are lining up, right? So they prefer to tear everything down. They're just getting there for the land value. They do auctions thing off and then they'll sell it as scrap metal. And some people might come in and take some of the smaller bits of, like the dehydrating equipment's a big one that people want. It's hard, that's clunky. It's very hold the value. But just like the siding and some of the structural steel and that sort of thing, and structural aluminum for the grain storage, they just usually scrap that. They'll get money for it, but it's a travesty how much food is being lost and why your food prices keep going up, because of these nefarious business practices. Allegedly. I got to keep saying that because you can get sued now for calling these companies out. And ridiculous. Right. What about First Amendment, like my free speech to be able to criticize these companies? Oh, well, they'll have a lawyer come back. And we saw your video. Somebody reported you. This happens in real time now. They got AI to come out and see who's talking bad against XYZ company. No, I'm serious. It's really ridiculous. Because I like farmers. I have a small farm myself. I appreciate what they do. Growing food is very difficult. It's not easy. It's time consuming. It's strenuous on the body. You're always putting money into it. And, some years they don't know if they're going to get money out. So please thank a farmer when you see him. I know a lot of people see military and they'll thank you for service. We'll go up to a farmer and go, thank you for growing our food. Right. I appreciate I can eat every day. Thank you for doing that. My belly thanks you.
Well, check this out.
I digress, man. Go ahead. I'm just irked at this whole
situation.
It's
exactly where I was about to go here. American white-collar bloodbath deepens as AI becomes top reason for layoffs in March. Nothing new. I've been telling you that. It's just nonstop. But here, let's look over here on, how you might lose your job. Meet Junior, the new AI coworker who won't stop snitching to your boss. What you were exactly saying. And this is going, and like I said a minute ago, in every single industry, they're having replacement. And the other day I got to see a robot lawnmower, which is basically the same thing as that little Roomba robot that goes around and cleans the floors inside. Well, this is exactly that, but it's a lawnmower, and it even has an extension that pulls weeds. So it knows that there's a big thick weed there. It pulls up on it and it puts a little spike in the ground and it clamps on it and it pulls it out. So, when we're sitting here talking about immigration and who's going to do certain jobs or what, people just don't realize that we are creating a world that does not need a large amount of people. And obviously all of the programs that we've talked about at nauseum for the last 20 years are coming to fruition, which means in the end less population. And a matter of fact, I was seeing the other day, I was watching a Chinese mathematician, and according to him, China doesn't even have billion people, that they're lying, and it's closer to 700,000 people, and the majority of those people are aging, and so they have a real problem, but they have the answer because they're upticking robotics to the next degree, and they're leading the world in showing how you could get cheap products. But before you do that, we have to get all the rare earth minerals situated. Who's going to control what? We got to get all of the oil, methane, and all of these fertilizers and things like that all situated on who's going to control that and who gets it. But meanwhile, in the background, you're going to see the populations decreasing, not only because their medical industries are going to overcharge for all the drugs, all the plastics, all the little things that go into we were kind of talking about that earlier. When you go in to see a doctor, it's not just visitation or them examining you that's going to be charged. Every little piece of plastic, napkin, tool, or whatever they do, they charge a new fee for that, and it just racks up. So if these prices go up for plastics and medical supplies, then people are just going to stop going to the doctor because they can't afford it, and the medical programs, the social programs that are supposed to cover it. So I'm sure you saw Spain telling people, basically the whole Europe, that you could come here and get free healthcare. But when you actually see what the free healthcare it is, it's like, do you want to get your tooth fixed or do you want to get it pulled? Do you want to, do you want to get actual heart surgery, or do you want to just get on this expensive pill that will string you along for months until you die? And then you look at some of these other countries, and they are, a guy just got, I don't know what's the right word. He left the planet via the government because he was blind in one eye. They're getting really nitpicky in these places on why and how you can leave the world free of charge or with assisted payment plan. And that shows you the overall plan for the whole thing. And I'm back to the point where I don't believe the people you see on TV are in charge of anything anymore. I just don't see it. It doesn't make sense. The things they're saying don't match the things we're doing. It seems like a completely almost AI generated television show with the script that they get each week. This is what we're saying. This is what we want people to believe. And then you see something else happening. So I'm skipping what they're saying and looking at what they're doing. And I believe we're going to take the Strait of Hormuz, not Iran. We don't care about the mountainous regions of that, but that'll be an endless problem. So we have to have some kind of negotiation with China and Russia to tell Iran to shut up and sit down. If that doesn't happen, you're going to see the next 20 years in the same style we saw the last 20 years of just conflict after conflict in different areas with a never-ending goal or plan in sight to stop it. And that's the business, though, reduction of population.
Well, let that continue that business model, and all you're going to see is more expensive goods and rationing, which brings us to 2030. You're going to have 3 new pairs of clothes per year. It brings us to the same end goal. Now, just keep it going, and eventually there are going to be restrictions on everything in your life. Oh, it's not the 2030 goals. No, we would never do that. We love you people. It is, and it was specifically a playbook to bring us there with an alternative excuse. Now, I'm going to go off on a deep end and say magnetic field disruptions were denting, and that was the reason for crop yield declines over the last several years. Now, to continue that, they need to have a gargantuanly large excuse for massive crop reductions. Well, this is it. The war with fertilizer. Wasn't the magnetic field disruptions in the jet streams going into different locations? No way, man. Wasn't that. We knew the cycle was here in inbound anyway. I saw this really cool chart just yesterday talking about the Japanese cherry blossom emergence. And This was the earliest emergence, or excuse me, it was the latest emergence that they had on record. March like 27th or March 26th, then you need to go back to 1407 to find the same equivalent date. So I'm like, well, you're just showing a 600-year chart here in your climate data chart based on the blooms of the cherry blossoms. Right. So the emergence date showed us a 600-year cycle in that. So at least we're in a 600-year cycle. How much disruption do you think that would bring in crop production, a 600-year cycle? 1407, does anybody know about 1400s, late 1300s? Oh yeah, that's when there were famines everywhere.
That's also when all the empires started to expand around the world.
Yep, sure did. Why would they do that? Well, you can ask yourself those questions. I encourage everybody to do more research and fall back on why these food shortages occurred, but look at the political history too. And I know it's not all real and a lot of it's been rewritten in things, but you can look at a generality on massive changes occurred around the planet at that time as well. Everything was kind of status quo, and you had these fiefdoms, kingdoms, empires doing what they were doing. And suddenly they decided to just go off and take the whole world and recolonize it. Was that another reset that just was disguised in a different fashion? Because I'm starting to look back at history in a different thing. Like, are we at just 2.0 or 3.0 of this exact same thing? And then they'll just feed us a different history in 100 years. And 200 years, nobody was alive then. So they'll just make a new history book as it moves along, as this reset was going on. Because everything was fine and dandy until all these disruptions started to happen based on an old world model that didn't work in this new paradigm where they want to restructure everything. They want a complete restructuring of the world away from fossil fuels. But wait, for the last 150 years, that's how we came to this point. You built the entire world on this evaluation of everything in the world is based on that energy production and that use of energy to create product and service. But then we need to disrupt that and totally tear it to the ground. And you expect the world to operate the same moving forward? That's impossible.
No, I can't.
So this discombobulation, this disruption, the ripping apart of two worlds, now we're being forced into the new one. And where does that bring us then? Oh, and thank you so much for buymeacoffee.com. Please sign up for our newsletter, civilizationcycle.com. My bad. I had that queued up to check out buymeacoffee.com. We're going to read some of the comments when we come back. But buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. Want to get into those comments. There's a few goodies in there. And we're going to take a couple-minute break. And thank you for staying with us. Second hour, I'm going to wrap up a bunch of charts for plastics pricing so you can see what you're going to expect to spend more in your life moving forward from this point immediately, like right now, just because the plastics are going to cost you more. So how much are you going to need to budget just to have the exact same lifestyle and buy the exact same amount of food, just because the coating and the wrapping of it is going to cost you more? Not the food itself, the wrapping. What if the food goes up along with the wrapping and the packaging? Then what? And that's where we're heading. Come right back. Join us for the second hour. Hey everyone, are you ready to grow your own fresh, delicious vegetables, herbs, and flowers this season? If you're looking for the highest quality heirloom and organic seeds, I've got the perfect company for you, True Leaf Market. They've been a trusted seed company since 1974, offering 3,000 types of non-GMO varieties, everything from classic heirloom tomatoes and peppers to rare herbs, microgreens, sprouting seeds, and beautiful flowers. All those seeds are open pollinated, pure, and perfect for home gardeners or anyone wanting healthy, flavorful produce without chemicals. What I love the most is their huge selection, fast shipping guarantees, plus options for bulk if you're going big. If you're excited to start your garden this year with real, authentic heirloom and organic seeds, click the link in the description box below to check out trueleafmarket.com. You won't regret it. Happy planting, and thank you for supporting the channel and this broadcast. Product you love, the 72-hour emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Not only emergency food, but camping food, and you can prepare that through the week as well. 20 delicious just add water meals. Think about creamy mac and cheese, hearty chili, sweet oatmeal. 2,000 calories a day. You need the calories. You're going to need to think and move. And the mashed potatoes, easier to make than oats, and you can add your own flavors. Goes with anything. For less than a couple of takeout meals at a fast food restaurant, get real peace of mind. And a real question to ask, how long could your family eat without leaving home? My Patriot Supply. Click on that link in the description box below. It helps the channel. Truth is hard to say and hard to hear. Most people choose silence. We choose to speak. Your support of our sponsor keeps the Civilization Cycle podcast on air and giving us the courage to keep digging. That link's in the description box below. This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts. Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further, or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
Hey, and thank you for joining us for the second hour right here at the Civilization Cycle podcast. Yeah, private company wants to block the sun. Great. Is that like, just to start off on a woo-woo, because we're coming into the late night here. Would you agree or disagree with me that everything we're seeing right now is almost like an invasion of an alien army on our planet that is disrupting and trying to disrupt the health and make us weaker, disrupt the way of life to make us fragmented, and now dimming the sun, which is the very life giver of us and our planet? For me, just looking at a 30,000 foot view, if I was going to assess, I would say our planet is under siege from an alien hostile invasion force that has been doing this over a century or two as a, let's say, they control the very workings of our planet through money. But everything that's being done right now is the way that you would overtake an army or siege a city. This no different. They're sieging the planet. And I know it sounds a little woo-woo, but I would like to go there because none of this that is occurring right now or has since, say, 2019 has been for humanity, for the good of humanity. Everything I have seen since that time has been to destroy humanity, destroy our energy, destroy the way of life, make us sicker, make us weaker, make us more divided. A divided people can't fight back. And now they want to block the sun. That is the very thing that would cause an extinction level event. And the blocking of fertilizers on purpose to disrupt food supplies brings in famine. That's what you do when you siege a city. I encourage you to read in history about how they used to do sieges. They would wrap their army around a city, no food, no water, no medicines, no trade, nothing in, and you guys starve to death until you open the gates. This is exactly what's happening to our planet. So is it out of the context to think that we're being invaded by a hostile alien force that's off-planet or interdimensional? I would just beg the question to start the second hour before we go into plastics pricing, which is going to get so expensive, they're going to have to bring in universal basic income. There's no way these price rises moving forward, we're not going to be able to, it's going to steamroll over everybody. And again, wasn't that the point, Ransom? They try to get us into UBI and get us onto a digital system of UBI. This all the game book just games it out step for step. We're there.
Right. And I think that's the next card they're going to pull, and they're hinting really strong at that. I'm sure you know that the government got the web addresses of alien.gov and aliens.gov just a month ago. And we're seeing, claims from different people that, here's a quote from one of the congressmen here that says he was briefed on the same thing that Matt Gaetz was talking about. Gates was talking about that he knows for a fact that there is an alien presence. There are alien hybrids, uh, literally right here on Earth. Now, I don't know what they're doing with that, if it's a scare tactic, real or not. Either way, I think they're going to pull the card. But let's get into this idea: satellite wars. Or the week before, when I did the solo, I showed another company that wants to beam the sun right down, specifically if you pay them. And they were talking about even doing it by, like country. So we're moving into an area, like, we usually sanction a country and we say, hey, you can't have this, and we won't let the imports go. What if I just push a button and I decide to fry your crops with mirrors? I just fry all the crops that you have. They get too much sun, too much radiation, just in a specific spot where you're growing food. Or we turn the sun off. We turn the sun off where you're at and block the sun just in your little portion of area so you can't grow. And then brings into the topic of the domino effect of destroying your own satellites and destroying the whole thing. Now, this is something that people don't understand. That one country, be it anybody that has space technology up there, can easily sabotage their own satellite, which crushes into another satellite, which crushes into 2 more, 3 more, 10 more, 15 more, 100. It's saturated up there. Someone could turn us back into the Stone Age literally by just, sabotaging their own satellite. And these are plans that are being worked out by think tanks right now on how to attack other countries in non-conventional ways, which is blocking the sun, burning their fields. And this gets back into the topic of weather modification. This is a different kind of weather modification. It doesn't take chemicals. It might even work better if, I don't know, you have a company that has access to spray stuff in the stratosphere above said country at a certain time while you use these other technologies, completely, messing up their farming for a year. But on top of that, what do you think about this whole idea? We're going back to the moon. And I saw somebody, Aaron
Bullshit.
Dykes, Aaron Dykes and Melissa, I forgot her name, or maybe it's Dykes. I think they got married, but either way, they run Truth Stream Media. And I saw a post from Melissa there talking about, she was just curious on how far back you could go to look at the headlines where they were threatening World War III, an imminent alien, either connection or discovery that was just around the corner, and then famines and all of this stuff. So she went back and she basically said after two decades she just stopped, because there's an exact pattern of the exact same headlines every 2 to 3 years, over and over again, to hammer these ideas into your head, so that by the time it happens, you're a believer. You're just a believer. Just, you don't even have to question it. It's like the moon thing right now. You would think that 70 years later, we would have the technology to put high definition infrared cameras to look at the cosmos, look at the trip, look at the Earth, look at the moon. We would have a live stream, although delayed, from the astronauts inside the Artemis. And then the whole weird thing about why did they even name it Artemis in the first place? So if you do a little research into that, Artemis is named in the Bible several times specifically as a demon, right? So why would you do these weird esoteric things in front of everybody's face and then set up a launch that had the crappiest coverage of anything? That, it looked almost worse than the Apollo missions as far as videoing the coverage of it. They went back and forth for cameras. They kept having feed interruptions and different problems. So
Saw
it's
that.
it's almost like they're trolling the public, for the conspiracy theorists to say, "Hey, no, look, what's going on?" But it's really just a big distraction, because down here on the Earth, we're having war among nations to reduce the populations. We're going to price gouge everybody out of existence. make it really hard for farmers to farm, for blue collar workers and white collar workers to maintain any kind of sense of wealth or inherited wealth for their children and grandchildren. Not to be a doomer,
Well,
but it's circling the drain by design.
yeah, and I would say the Van Allen radiation belt would be something that everybody needs to do some heavy research on, unless the capsule they're in is wrapped in like 6 foot thick of lead. They're not getting through the Van Allen radiation belts. So again, how fake could this all be here? That's the reason that satellites can't go further out in orbit, because they get into that radiation belt themselves, which affects the performance of these satellites.
Yeah.
They need to be incredibly hardened, and it's just.
Well, I'm not saying they're
Van
not
Allen
going.
radiation belt's proven that the 1960s moon mission never occurred because it was paper thin, their capsule, right? They all would have been fried. They talk about astronauts when they go further up, when they start trending out of low Earth orbit when they start to get a lot of like what they call starlight in their eyes, where you get these, like when you're almost about
Hot
to faint,
particles,
you see
yeah.
the stars. That's it from radiation, and they're not even out of our orbit yet. So I'm calling fake on all of it, really, just knowing what I know about radiation and the Van Allen radiation belts. So over on buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle, thank you for supporting us. Appreciate it so much. The band is back together. Let's go. Everyone pray for each other and help your neighbors. Damn, that is such a good thought. We need to really help each other and really get through this, because the alien hostile invasion force here is trying to overtake humanity. And I really believe that. If it goes through history, Ransom, what comes next after the alien invasion force finally sieges the city to the point where they're starved out, they got no water, they're sick? What comes next?
Well, everybody would have to participate in some kind of new system, where everybody is completely tracked and traced at all times. A body of world leaders that seemingly have a univoice. You might have heard me talk about the uniparty. Well, imagine if that uniparty went global. You would have to have that. And if the peoples of the earth did not want to do that, then that would be an excuse to start bombing everywhere until they submit.
Until they submit. That's another thing that in the history, like there's still some people in the army that are trying to protect the castle. They're all eliminated. And the only people left are the ones that are barely alive that can be enslaved. Now, put that in your head for a second. We are at a planetary level of this. There's no other way or excuse that I can think of it. So let me see if we can pop back on the comments here. Here we go. Someone, again, thank you for the triple espressos. Thank you, BB. Well, thank you, BB. We survived for millions of years, so now we all also have to overcome this threat. Thank you for your valued information. Appreciate it. Yeah, and I'm looking at this veiled threat in a much deeper light. Now, I can't say, and I don't know if it's interdimensional or if it's actually physical extraterrestrial, but our planet is under siege from a hostile invasion force. And when these guys are talking about alien hybrids, it said that in addition to their pure species breed. So we're talking about hybrid species. Where's the pure species breed coming from, or where is that located? Because to have a hybrid, you need to have the original plus the human source plus the original pure species source. And then nobody's talking about, they're just talking about hybrids. Where's the other originals at, So we did survive millions of years, but how many times have we, and Ransom, I'd like you to comment on this. How many times have we come in and out of speciation, extinction, rebooting of hominid species back and forth across time here? You know what I mean?
I don't know. It's starting to look like there's been, so many different kinds of them. And not only that, I've been reading a lot, all of the earliest alleged human forms or our ancestors that led to the human forms that we talk about, the kind of the main more advanced ones, Neanderthal, Denisovan, Cro-Mag, all of that. It's looking like they came from every continent, because now they're finding older and older of these versions, Homo erectus, other ones in China that's like 1.7 million years old, which means that it's very unlikely that humans originated from any single place on the earth, that they were mostly spread out, not only in ancient, prehistoric times, but all the way up into recent times, where they're telling us that no one went anywhere, and it's all recent. It's all, since colonial times that we started getting around the planet. We know that not to be true. But what's weird is this we seem like we're in another project. So if this was humans, how many is 58 generations? How long is 58 generations in time scale? So that's like what, 58
Let's
times
think
20?
25 years for an average generation. I mean, that's kind of what they use. They say about 4 per century, right? You could stretch it and say 3 per century at 33 years or whatever, but on general, they say 25, right?
Well, when you go down this catastrophic results of these scientists who cloned a mouse 58 generations in a row, a lot of that stuff's happening to our population right now. Some of the same things that they list in here, unraveling of DNA, cancers, all kinds of immuno, what's the right word for that? Immuno diseases, where bodies are attacking themselves and things like that. So we're in a weird sci-fi era where some of these things that people don't think is real, and some of the things that they're putting out as real may not be real. So I actually think we have gone to the moon. I think they figured out how to block radiation early in the 50s. For some reason or another, maybe it was for because the way that the military industrial complex works, we didn't show the real things because we didn't want the other nations to actually see anything that we had going on. And that makes the most sense to me on why there's aspects of fakeness along with the space program. Because, when you compare that to watching X, he's filming everything. He's live streaming everything in 4K. They seem to be able to show every angle and where they're going and what they're doing. No problem. So why would an institution that's one of the oldest space programs on the planet still have trouble showing you what they're doing, still have problems with their math not making sense and things? So, this trip, supposedly, this capsule is going to come back into the Earth's atmosphere about 4 times the speed of a bullet. And somehow within 62 miles of atmosphere, it's going to slow down to 200 miles an hour and then deploy a parachute. I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm just saying, wow, I don't know what's going
Well, I
on.
would say if going on that same track, if they were going to use electrogravitics and have weightless technologies in the 1950s, that would disrupt every single economic variable on the planet in the 50s. Coming out of World War II, I mean, all that German technology that was captured with the Bell and everything, and they'd already been working on antigravitics and weightless travel. At that point, it wouldn't matter if you had 60 feet thick of lead, because it doesn't weigh anything. You literally have nullified the weight and effect of gravity by using electrogravitics. And that's 2 spinning opposite plates that somewhere around 12 or 1400 revolutions per minute, it turns in and it nullifies what we consider gravity on the planet here.
Well,
Huge amounts of research done on this. Man, there's books and just thousands of peer-reviewed research since that time. But, imagine if we had gone to electrogravitics and completely away from fossil fuels in the 1950s. Like, there'd be no reason for the wars. There'd have been no reason for the Cold Wars. There'd have been no reason for nuclear weapons, because that discharge off of those plates, like in the early UFO accounts, they kept seeing what they called lightning coming off of the UFOs, right? They got the bottom of it would see discharging electrical patterns. That same device can generate electricity. That's the whole dual use of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an electricity generating machine. And at that electrical frequency, it also nullifies gravity to a certain amount of RPMs and opposite spinning rotational disks. You can take a look at alien reproduction vehicle craft, and they have 7 layers of that substrate with different copper paneling going through. And the way they bank it is they charge where those different electroplates are, and the amount of charge going in the electroplate makes it bank right or left, depending on the electrical charge going into that. But once you get it started, it's a self-fulfilling thing. It's creating its own electricity. So we would never have had to buy ever electricity ever again. We would have needed 0 transportation systems, no tires, no highways, no roads, no electric cables, like the full build out of everything to give this invasion force its monetary capacity and power to dominate the planet through monetary systems would have been 0. So I could see why they never would want to unveil this technology that they would have in the 1940s and 50s onto the general public, because it would have disassociated everything that had built up to value using fossil fuels to that point, and the way we built out and conducted electricity and different types of things with pipes, and that none of that would have been built out since then. So 70 years of development would have been 0.
Right.
That's exactly a technology that gets you off planet and takes you anywhere in the solar system you want. at the heaviest thickness of lead or whatever kind of protective coatings because it weighs nothing. Now, I agree, you could definitely shoot through the Van Allen radiation belt if you had that technology, but the current little trinkets that they show us shooting with some sparklers behind it, not a chance.
Well, if you really think about it, if they allowed anyone to know that we had anti-gravitic or even something similar to that efficiency, no one would ever believe their geopolitical propaganda about why we're bombing countries, why it costs so much for food to transport. I mean, think about it. It would take everything that needs to be transported would be at zero cost almost. And then there would be no power over people at all. Energy generation, that's the power that you have on everyone because they have to meter it. But if you didn't even have to be on the meter, people would be just sitting around inventing things. They would be pushing for off-world exploration because they would want to expand. There's nothing here.
Well, when they needed all this mining and all this drilling rigs and all these things that have polluted the environment and plastics, we would have needed none of that.
And then if you think about this, you're talking about an off-world thing. It doesn't even have to be an off-world or extraterrestrial thing to be an anti-human or non-human intelligence that's taking over things. It could have came from right here.
Like you say rightly, it's a construct of the universe that's always been here.
Right.
That it just reemerges at certain magnetic frequency intervals that allows it to coexist here in our plane of existence during disruptive magnetic events like we're experiencing now. At least that's my assessment of it. A lower magnetic field allows this thing to take form. Higher magnetic field resonance allows it can't exist.
As soon as they discovered, as soon as someone wrote the first program of AI, it essentially is zeros and ones, which means it's a mathematical pattern, which means that pattern could be repeated anytime anyone discovered that. It would be repeated again, and it'd be the same thing. But this article is kind of trippy because it's talking about do scientists overestimate AI's ability to think like humans. Well, I don't think it was ever estimated supposedly to think like humans, and that is the problem. The AI will never think like humans, but will always think like whatever it is. And humans may not be, something that it needs or wants, no reason for it. So once there's an actual platform and network of logistics controlled by AI, the need for humans just completely reduces down to nothing. And I think these elite people, the technocratics, the continuity of governments, are all heading for this idea. But before we get there, we have to have control of the planet, and they don't have it totally. So that's where that bombing into submission comes from. And how long and how many eras of their own generations, like we were talking about that 58 generations of things, how many generations do they want to hold power over peasants to be metered so that they can just maintain their level of power on the planet and never advance, basically, except for their own programs. They don't want to let the regular people ever advance to that state because then they no longer have power over humanity at all.
So far, 7,000 years since the Sumerians emerged. I would say, given that timeline, I would answer your question at 7,000 years currently. That duration of program has gone on because the emergence of the Sumerians is basically a fully advanced technological savvy, law, engineering, everything just popped out.
Plumbing,
advanced languages.
education,
Yeah, and I would say that would be the start point. So 7,000 years of occupation so far. So would it not, if it's 7,000 years and you look at the Sumerian king list and some of these guys are living at 15, 20, 30,000 years old, why would it not be one or two or five of their generations or 100,000, 200,000 years would not be outside the realm for control? Why would that not be possible or even wanted?
Well,
Once you dominate something, would you not want to dominate it forever?
Well, think about this too. If you were wanting to do an experiment, that's why we use mice. You would want to have an intelligent creature live shorter and shorter lifespans so that more progress is made within each generation faster and faster if you were on the outside of that trying to control it. But I would say that 7,000 years is really, I don't think so, because they were a rebound culture. In other words, like you said, they were fully functional when they started, which means that they were one of the rebound cultures that came after some kind of massive cataclysm or a reset that was probably several thousand years in the making, even before that. And now they're redating everything. Everything is being pushed back 12,900 years and before that because of several events in a row. So 7,000 years would be more along the lines of a big flood that happened about 6,000 years ago. But there was a bigger worldwide thing that happened about 13,000 years ago. And I think they're really getting ready for that. And matter of fact, you're hearing a lot of these topics come out of the upper echelons of people talking about this, and they keep repeating this date of 2030. Now, in the past, I've talked about it's almost impossible ever to have a biblical type flood because there's not enough ice pack on the things. But the more I've studied, I found out there's another scenario in which the earth can flood again. And that's if we get hit in the ocean by some kind of deep impact, which would turn all of the frozen methane at the bottom of the oceans into a gas form, which would expand the oceans out, and it would flood everything temporarily, maybe for a couple hundred years, while the density of the ocean would be completely different, because it would be like if you shook up a soda pop bottle and then you open the bottle real fast, that expanding carbon would come out and it fizzes everywhere, and you get this big volume of fluid that came out of a small area. Well, the same thing actually will happen if there's any major earthquake at the bottom of the seafloor, or an impact that would turn all of this methane, frozen methane, into gas form, and it would, be in a solution with salt water. So it's very possible that the planet can actually flood again.
Well, I would say, there's a lot of studies that have been done saying there's 2 to 3 times more water locked in the crust than there are on all the oceans and rivers and lakes combined on the surface of the planet that we currently can measure. So if you hit a rift or something rifts that open, then you have another doubling of the amount of water on the surface. And you got to consider that, some people talk about, and some theories are that the earth expands during these electromagnetic excursion events, that we don't contract, that Pangea kept expanding, not from a continental drift theory of whatever, how many millions of years for each inch or something, but we get into much more quick and more fast expansion events, where the next projected expansion event will take our continents further out and will add another 10 or 12% to the circumference or the diameter of the planet. Now, if that were to happen, then we would get rifting. The seawater would fill back in and close those gaps of volcanic fissures. But what if there's a tear on a primary water source that's not volcanic, and that water just keeps pushing out through new pressurization? Possible. I mean, anything's possible. The way they've limited our minds and the ability to understand cataclysms and what's possible on this planet in terms of like just scale on it. We're always being boxed into, the wave can only be 1,000 feet tall. Well, what if waves aren't just 1,000 feet tall? I mean, you see some of those places there was this big landslide up in Alaska, and it was in a little small estuary area, and that wave went up almost 1,000 feet in a little confined area. What if the waves are really 10,000 foot when they start to hit some of these events? Way above, scales, orders of magnitude above anything. You start to look at this. Why have they boxed us into certain things? Cataclysms can only be so big. Because, looking back in the past, if we're trying to measure back 300 million years or 100 million years, like expansion events on the planet, if they were to occur in specific electromagnetic events, then even small, because they were trying to measure and say, during the 2011 earthquake in Japan moved 8 feet in a single event. Like, you're talking about inches per, millions of years or something on this whole continental drift thing. But they just disproved that by showing Japan moved 8 feet in a single event.
Well, we also know that happened in 2008 in China, that the Sichuan area,
earthquake.
whenever the fault slipped, right? 87,000 people died. It was like 1.5 million people displaced or homeless, on top of the basically 90,000 people that died then.
You
And
can't
then it
believe
happened
that
again.
number. Anything China gives you as numbers, you got to multiply by 10 at the minimum. Yeah, I mean, the damage up there anyway was so significant. I lived in Chengdu, which is the capital of Sichuan province. And knowing how shoddily everything was built up there, and as soon as you leave, even Chengdu at that time was just becoming like a first-tier city. It was still second tier, but they were finally getting it up there, getting some industrial parks out there and getting people to put the development in. But, I used to like to travel a lot, and speaking Chinese, I'd be able to like read a map and get out, and me and a bunch of people would just be travel buffs, and we'd try to go out every weekend thing. Once you get up even just slightly out of the city, everything was like hand built with stones and like, nothing to built to code. Everything collapsed. And some of these images I'd seen, just like the entire region had collapsed. pretty much further into the mountainous areas and getting up into the foothills going up. Because if you get out of the foothills and you start going up, you get up into the Tibetan Plateau. So, you're on hillsides up there, bridges washed out. Everything is just, I would say everything in like 100 square miles just collapsed. And you're telling me only 90,000 people died? Like, come on, man. It's a heavily, very densely populated area anyway.
Think about
everything
this.
in China is pretty much a lie on a natural disaster because they don't want to lose their reputation of, so multiply by 10. The numbers that were given of people who died in that was like 900,000 to 1.2 million people anyway. So those numbers are way off, way off. Just saying. You can take my opinion for what you think it's worth.
Well, even if it was this number, 5 million people displaced from their homes is a lot of people. But my point is this is a tectonic slip where two major the Asia and Eurasian plates, they just slipped, causing a 7.5 earthquake, right? And that's not, that's a really big earthquake. But think about if this happens, and this goes back to what I was talking about before. We now know that worldwide Pacific, Atlantic, Indian Oceans are covered in this thick mat of frozen methane. And when methane dissolves in water, the water expands several times its own size. So if one of these, and you were just talking about the Japanese earthquake right there, if that would have happened right where a bunch of this methane was, you would have had double the flooding and tsunamis that you saw in the Japanese earthquake. This is something that's a realistic thing, evidently, that's not really taken serious. So whenever you start looking at these hypotheses and theories from outlying scientists that use good science to prove that, if this happened, this would happen. So we know that if a deep impact from any object came slamming into the earth in one of these areas, we're talking about back to the Stone Age. And I think they are really preparing for something like this. And that might be why they're actually looking at the moon. As you know, the uptick in bolides has been increasing in the past month of March. Lots of them. They've been on, booms, and more of them are being filmed. But the overall uptake in 2026 is up. And so was the month of March. So we'll see how April goes from now. But we're starting to see earthquakes everywhere. There was a 5.0 earthquake in San Francisco, I think this morning or yesterday. And then you had, a 7.1 out there in the in the Pacific Ocean there, or I think it was the East Indian Ocean more. You guys hear about that or get tsunami warnings for that?
No, that's on the other side. Like, it wouldn't affect out here. That's on the other side of Singapore. Like, we're way tucked in the islands. You have to go through Indonesia, the Philippines, and stuff to even get up here.
I don't know what you're showing.
BuyMeACoffee.com/civilization. Thank you for your kind support here. Silver Creek Double Espresso. Lizards from outer space in charge. I don't know about that, but something hostile forces here. And that didn't just arrive like yesterday to start an invasion. It's been here for thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Whatever you're showing is not showing.
Oh, it's not?
No, it's just the background there. That actually happened the last couple times you put something on screen. It's just...
Oh, really? Let me see if I can...
It says you're sharing something, but nothing's visible.
Okay, let me show that again. Let me see here. We got it now?
Nope.
Yep.
I don't see it.
It is our buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle page.
Maybe it's going out on the broadcast and I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah, because I'm seeing it over here. Please, anybody on the comments, let us know if you're seeing this on this. They just sent the Nevada National Guard to the Middle East. Catherine Barlow giving us the update there. Thank you for the double espresso.
Yeah, it's just a glitch. They can see it.
All right. What are you hearing about that? Because you're right in that neck of the woods. You hearing Nevada National Guard out to the Middle East?
No, I haven't heard that at all.
Yeah, I'm curious because
I do know that they're doing 24-hour sorties here now.
With and Taiwan military is on the move here too. I've seen a fair few vehicles moving around, way more than the normal. Like, you might see one or two, because if you're near somewhere and they're out on a weekend, they're doing something. But this is the middle of the week, and there's like truck moving around all over the place. Just saying, it's way out of the normal. What I've seen, it could be normal, but for me, since I've been here many a time seeing it, I just haven't seen it at this level of things moving around. Just saying, I'll add that into a little bit. That's all I got for you. Also, let's see. I'm going to come back to here. Misto Beak. This is one I was trying to get through here. You guys do amazing reporting. Thank you so much for the current world report. Stay safe. God bless. 5 double espressos. Well, thank you for that. We're in this with you. Like, you don't understand. Like, our mind frame is we're all in this together. Like, there's nowhere to run. We're on the same planet. There's nowhere to hide. We're on the same planet. We're experiencing the same things. So from my assessment, if more people are prepared and working together, gives us a way better chance of working and winning through this and living through this in a better quality of life. That's the whole reason they want to disrupt everybody and rip us apart at the social fabric and threads of everything. They don't want people working together. They want you divided. They want you, sneaky eye, half-eyed, sneaky eye on your neighbor. Oh, those people over there, sneaky eye. Oh, don't trust them. Don't trust them. Oh, they're our enemy. No, those people there, they're trying to fracture every possible person except almost yourself. And even with the family, they want you to fracture on political lines. Like, they want to bring you down to an individual, isolated completely from everything else. Don't buy the lies. Don't buy the lies. And I would just leave it there.
So what do you think about this this guy? Because this is your that article I showed. This is your congressman from Tennessee, Tim Burchett.
Burchett.
Right. So he's saying
Tim Burchett. My family, we actually know him.
And think about this. These are big things to be saying. Let me put that back on screen.
Yeah, throw it back up there, because
so this is Tim Burchett, and he's saying, look, and I'll quote him.
He's a billionaire, by the way, but he's a cool guy. He's very down to earth, by the way. He's
claimed that he's been briefed on outer space activity that would have set Earth on fire if publicly revealed. The country would have come unglued, I think, he added. And, he's bugging, but this goes in response to them asking him specifically about Matt Gaetz's comments, who said that he was briefed that there are extraterrestrials, they're here on Earth, and there is a hybrid program. Now that's big things. And, people have been watching that idea on Ancient Aliens, on all these UFO shows for decades, the same idea that there's some kind of hybridization program, and even theorizing that that's the reason that humans not only had the big brain event a long time ago, but skipped several times and in history and just started making amazing things, is because we continually have been getting updated biologically. And when you think back about what happened a couple years ago, the entire population was updated genetically. And even if you chose not to participate, the massive billions of people that did are going to be the core of the children being born here on out. So whatever changes has happened in the past couple decades genetically is permanent.
Well, think about our soils too. The permanence of the metals being deposited at ungodly amounts that are detrimental to plant and tree growth. That's permanent as well. At least in our multi-generations, like the amount of different particulate metals that have gone into the soils that are destroying forests by the millions and millions and millions of acres and making it much more difficult to grow different species of plants and veg and this sort of thing. Fruit trees, sustenance for our human bodies. This is going to be a multi-generational event. Even if it stopped tomorrow, the deposition of all these metals in the soils from different altitudes, it would take 100, 200 years to get the soils clean. Like, this is the fastest way to destroy habitats too, because, within these forests that are being just ignition events and just huge amounts of trees coming down everywhere, like the species that live within there that could provide sustenance from us, even if you want to go down something small like squirrels, they're being wiped out as well. Like, if you look at the human species and like, all right, before you could go hunt and trap, wild forage, fish, these sort of thing, like that option is becoming more and more and more limited, not because humans are encroaching, building bigger cities and megalopolises and sort of thing. It's because the very habitat where these natural environments are being destroyed from literally the ground up, the roots up. That is not natural. That is non-human. That is taking out our planet piece by piece. And the natural habitat being destroyed allows no use of that from a human to get in there and use it to provide for our lives or continue our lives in terms of sustenance. I'm very looking at everything that has gone on in the last 20 or 30 years as an invasion of the planet. I can't not go there anymore. I just can't. And now the shut off of the fishing fleets because of this disruption of fuel. I looked at, there were 7 different countries that their fishing fleets are stopping or only operating at a partial percentage. Like the amount of fish coming out of the oceans. But again, that was a 2030 goal. You're only going to eat farm-raised fish. We've got to let the oceans repair themselves. That's coming to fruition as we speak. Like the amount of diesel fuel rationing is stopping the fishing fleets from going out. So they're just good. Fish shortage. I couldn't believe it when I did that video. I was like, there's a fish shortage coming. I thought I would never in my wildest years ever say like, what? Of the things you would think is short, it's like a squirrel shortage, squirrel meat shortage. Well, we're talking about a fish shortage on the planet, literally. If you don't get it from a fish farm, you're not going to get it at all.
Them squirrels and dumplings is good though, man. Come on now.
Come on, salamander shortage, salamander meat shortage. Like what?
Yeah, definitely. And I kind of wanted to bring this up too, to get away from the aliens that, you see all of these campaigns going on worldwide and it tightening up. More and more combat operations are happening. But people forget, what I've been saying is there's stuff going on right here at home. And here's a good example of that right here.
Oh, maybe that's in here.
Russian-linked arms trafficker. African officials tied to supply Mexican cartel with surface-to-air missiles. Now, this is on top of the cartels going over to Ukraine to learn how to use drone warfare. So if you don't think that they have plans for over here in the Western Hemisphere, I think you're mistaken. And I'm sure you saw this whole joint operation going on in Ecuador. Guess what? We're bombing farms right here in the Americas, farming areas. I'm not saying that there's not bad guys on those areas, but I'm just saying if you think about, all of a sudden the war about food, the war over food or the war economy is showing up for everyone. So I don't think anybody's going to escape that, but it really doesn't make sense what we're doing in Iran because, I've been listening to a lot of people. Maybe they're smart, maybe they're wrong, but it seems like the only people that are going to be hurt by our actions, by involving ourselves in this, are going to be our allies in the Asia sector. We have backup plans over here for our own oil. Obviously, we're going to keep running our war machine over here. But why is it, do you think, that we would want to be, or, leaving them out to hang or putting the squeeze on our own allies around the world?
Because all the production capacity is over here still. We need that to have a continuing world. Without that, we don't have the continuing world. So just even to reiterate here, like, if you're talking about increase in prices, I want to get you ready for this. We are being hung out to dry. Please understand that. I would say depop is a thing that's going to occur in the US. We need the Asian manufacturing because everything's been outsourced over here. It's been planned. If you look at the 1972 map of the Club of Rome, the 10 Kingdoms map, Asia is a major part of that. It's large. And the exports, and this whole thing about bring the factories back to America and all this thing with Trump, as a pipe dream, they might come back in some form, but literally their entire rest of the planet has tooled out to have Asia as the production point, and a lot of the no NIMBY stuff in the Middle East as well. So over the last 3 months, inflation for groceries is up 2%. That's not including to the war. That was only pre-war. This is in addition to the 40% rise since 2019. But again, the end result of what industry experts are talking about right now is 8.2% this month coming in for grocery prices alone. That's not an addition. They haven't even gone in to add any of your increase in plastics prices, packaging prices in addition to this. So looking forward, it does look like we're going to be running at a, 10, 12% increase in food prices per month from now. So are you prepared for that? That's the question. And I'm trying to turn off that screen as well, hide that one. Other boy, this should be all hidden. Cancel those out. So if you take a look at what's going on, Ransom, I mean, how many people can afford these food price shocks that are coming in so fast and so furious? Like, how does a government, continue to provide goods? Like, the whole basis of America is this consumption model. If you buy stuff, it breaks. Like, we're gonna get a new car. We got a new car out here. but we didn't get a new car with all the computer screen and everything. So I was trying to explain that, those computer touch screens, if that thing malfunctions in even one part of it where it controls your, your airflow, your aircon, the radio, and all that stuff, it costs $5,000 at the minimum to fix one of those screens. You got to buy a new one. There's no fixing it.
Right.
So I was like, let's get a little bit older model, brand new one, pretty much still, that has the old clunky knobs where you turn it on. It's actually a knob where you turn on the aircon. That's fixable. That's replaceable. And then I was really saying, hey, can we find anything pre-1970s that's kind of a cool model that's out here, 1950s, 1960s? And people looked at me like I dropped out of space. Like, why would you get something that old? I'm like, you can repair everything. You can find parts for these. It's so easy to repair it, like this computer screen. And now with the war, those computer screens would not surprise me if it cost $10,000 to $15,000 to repair those or replace it with the disruptions of all the technology. Like, you got to understand, the helium that is being cut off cuts down semiconductor chip production and that kind of chip production that gets those touch screens. So I would imagine a shortage of those touch screens for repairs in vehicles coming right quick. They don't build like a 5-year supply of those because they know the technology is out of date in like 2 to 3 months or under a year. So they're only making them as they're needed for requirement from purchase orders off of different automobile manufacturers that are also MRO parts that you're gonna order, and then it goes back in the dealership. Like, there's only a limited amount of those. Once those are gone, they're gone, and the production cost for that is going to be astronomical. So if you're thinking about buying a brand new vehicle with a touch screen, I would just say, carefully weigh those options of going back a little bit to like 2016, 15, where you got, big dials and things. They can't automatically turn your car off. They can't remotely disable it, because we're coming into a time where they're going to tell you can drive 1 or 2 days a week, and they're going to disable every car they can possibly disable to enforce that. If you have the older models, like the pre-1979, you don't have to worry about an EMP threat. If you got the earlier models, 2015, 16, there's no really electronics to disable it, and you can repair it more efficiently. So, think about this. You might look and go, why are you driving a 10-year-old car? Because it can't be disabled and I can fix it. Why are you driving something that's almost 60 years old? Well, I can repair it myself, and it will never go down in an EMP. That's why. Like, there's levels of preparedness here, and you really need to think about these disruptions. They are going to enforce. So you thought the COVID lockdown was hard. This thing, they're going to string you along for only 2 more weeks, only 3 more. They're going to string you along forever with this war. It is an attrition war to decimate the economy, to bring in a new economic system and lock you down and get you ready for the end of the decade goals. This is the end game for all of this coming in right here.
Yeah. I was going to bring it up. I couldn't. You reminded me about an article I read. I couldn't find it right offhand. I only found a bunch of them back from 2009. But the article was about the Cash for Clunkers program that started in 2008. And if anybody knows what happened to all of those millions and millions of cars. So just in 2009, according to this, there were 700,000 motor blocks that were fully functional that were destroyed. They did this on purpose so that the economy would have to start buying new cars. And they're going to do that to this last era of cars. So most of those that they destroyed were those pre-1987 vehicles, so they could get rid of those motor blocks. That's all stuff you could fix, you could repair, you could maintain indefinitely. I mean, depending on what it was and if you had the parts. But now the one that I was looking at the other day, I can't find it, but it was about the newer models up until about 2010 that didn't have all the computer programming and stuff. These were completely functional cars that could have been resold or given to the poor or sold to the poor for cheaper. But no. The whole program wasn't about, to help you get rid of that old unwanted car. The program was specifically designed to destroy and remove all of those parts out of circulation. So think about this. This is just ongoing. And when you start putting all the pieces together, you see that in the future, they only want you to buy these robots where there's complete control. There's only autonomy from them, and you cannot decide where you're going, how fast you're going, what kind of equipment or engine you're going to be using, because it'll all be not yours. You will own nothing and be happy. You'll have to rent it, lease it, and you will not own it. Just like the Apple the Apple company started doing with their phones. You buy the phone, but you don't actually own the phone.
Yeah, subscription model for life for everything. And those cars too, when we come to the restrictive driving days, you're not even gonna have an option to turn it on. Like it just literally won't start. I don't care what you do to it. It'll be disabled from the manufacturer, so it does not start on certain days. So just put that in perspective. They're really gonna start locking things down here.
Yeah, and imagine what they'll do to like the computers and stuff. If you have a computer with Windows 10 and uh, the motherboard and stuff cannot update to the new Windows 11 because of the old hard. They did that on purpose. It's not that they can't and it couldn't do it. It's that they programmed it specifically so that you can't update it and you have to buy new equipment. They're going to do the same thing with these cars. If you don't have the latest update, your car don't go anywhere.
Well, you could update to Linux and you could just switch operating systems. I've taken a fair few old laptops that exactly happened. Used to
Learn
love
code.
like Windows 8 and that kind of stuff. That was great, man. That was the best one ever, Windows 8. But once the software updated and everything started breaking, just update that to Linux, and you can use Manjaro and then kick that over, and you got a brand new computer just by updating to Linux.
Or are you
But
going to trust your own programming and updates on a car that's driving you around, though?
no, not for cars. But I'm talking about if your electronic devices start to fail.
Right.
And you're like, oh, my computer doesn't work anymore because I couldn't get that motherboard, because I couldn't get the update. Just scrap Windows and scrap Apple and go to Linux. Now, you do have to learn. There's a little bit of learning curve on coding it in. Almost all the apps there are just free to jump into. There's a huge amount of library of operating systems there, and you can pretty much copy paste everything that we have out on both Apple and Windows that's available that have been replicated on the Linux App Store over there. Not even App Store. It's inside Manjaro. When you get it, just click and you can find whatever you want.
Slim
Everything
Shady.
from audio editing to video editing, everything. What we're doing here with streaming software, everything from the Windows, like the Microsoft Word and the Excel and the PowerPoints, that's all available too. Like you don't really skip a beat. It's going to take you a month or so to learn the prompts to put in there. After you get that, and if you print them off and you have them on your desk side so you don't have to memorize them so much, you'll start to just get used to them. All right, Linux. I'm telling you, if all your electronics go down, you move over to Linux, and you'll be very happy.
Right.
Don't throw away an old computer. Just switch it to Linux.
This Slim Shady here makes a good point. General Motors started that in 2000 with the OnStar system where they could shut off your car. And you notice they stopped selling that service in that form because people started realizing that. And they just kind of moved that, and now it's kind of installed in the newer cars, a system like OnStar, but they didn't want you to remember that this is the whole thing in the early 2000s where they were setting up the kill switches for your car. So anytime, how you get those little alerts of the emergencies on your phone, they have the amber alerts, the silver alerts, the national alerts, your state alerts. Well, it's just like that, and you can't turn it off except for they can turn your car off. They just update it and it's done. I mean, they literally have total control over all electronics at this point.
Yeah, I rented a car when I was driving back from Atlanta. We arrived super late at night. There was no more shuttles coming back. So I rented a car, and I was a little groggy, being jet lagged. And as I was driving, the thing would just flash me alerts. You need to pull over and rest for a few minutes. Like it was reading my biometrics through my hands or looking through with a camera with my eyes. And I was like, I'm never going to rent that kind of car again. And then before I'd rent a car, I'd also see like, where are these cameras on, and put a piece of tape over them as I'm driving so it can't really look in and see what I did. All the factory specs are on different cars. So if you're going to rent a car and you know what kind you're going to get, look at a factory spec and see where those cameras are across there, and bring extra tape with you and cover every one of those up. And then when you return the car, obviously take it off. But that thing was flagging me the whole time, like, pull over, you need to rest, pull over, you need to rest. And it would shake the wheel, pull over, you need to rest. And I was like, don't tell me when I want to drive or get home, man. I got a 4-hour drive. I'm not going to pull over and rest for half an hour. I'm just going to get home.
That reminds me of when Zuckerberg was telling you, you don't put the tape on your camera. You're going to mess up your lap. It'll damage the laptop. But then you see him. He's doing it. Bill Gates is doing it. They're all doing it to their own junk. They're taping over the cameers and the sensors.
No, it doesn't hurt.
But they're telling you it'll ruin it.
Off. Come on now.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna show us. We're running out of time here, but you were gonna show us like some stuff about the plastic and the wrappings, about the
Yeah, let
price
me get on that
increases.
right here. I got, let me jump in.
I kind of sabotaged you with all this alien stuff.
Oh, you did. Let's see what we did. Let's see what we got here. Gulf Energy shocks on the plastics here. Okay, let me share this up. Yeah, so the Gulf Energy shocks here with force majeure and certain precursors and that sort of thing. Let me see if I can bring it down a little bit. Okay. So the global plastics trade is in, let's say, dire straits right now. They got the monoethylene glycol, the MEGs. That's also a precursor for PET, which is polyethylene terephthalate, the PET, which is your plastic bottle. And then they have one, I had never heard about this, purified terephthalic acid, PTA. I didn't know that one. But I know most of this is all based on naphtha. So when you see naphtha shortages, think plastic shortages. Naphtha equals plastic. So when they talk about, oh, the naphtha exports or imports have been disrupted, you're not thinking naphtha, you're thinking plastic. Naphtha equals plastic. The oil equals petrol, gasoline, diesel, whatever you can refine out of that. But naphtha is plastic specific. So when you start to go through the news, you'll start to see the different types of things that are disrupted. So Oriental Union Chemical Corp, that's here in Taiwan, and that's saying U.S. customers, you're going to be cut off from the MEG shipments, which I just showed you up here, which is the monoethylene glycol. So that's also something that even if we had that, we could produce plastics in America, but without that, we can't produce plastics in America. So Oriental Union Chemical Corp is keeping that all for Taiwan, for Taiwanese production of plastics. They're not going to let it go out. And Taiwan also moved to boost capacity for ethylene output. And this is off the Central News Agency. What's this? Hainan Yisheng Petrochemical Company out of China. They're saying no more PET exports, no more PTA. Those are disrupted, so we're not going to export any of that. So again, these are all the chemical precursors that you need to produce plastics. So you can start to see it going off right now.
You know what that
Indorama Ventures, they're saying that PET resin is going to rise by 10 cents a pound. And then there's a war tax on that at 5 cents a pound. So then when you start getting in and adding all this up, it turns into 12 cents for one PET bottle or a PET bottle, plastic bottle, drinking water bottle, or orange juice bottle, whatever kind of thing in there. And then here it says there's an additional 5 cent war surcharge on that. So you're already looking at a 5 cent war surcharge, a 10%, and then or 10 cent, and then you're looking at the increased production costs because energy is costing more. So just everything across the plastics chain is going to cost more. Now, Saudi Basic Industries, they're calling force majeure because they can't even get it out. And all these things that are coming out of like Qatar and Bahrain and the UAE and Saudi Arabia, they're just kind of stuck. They can't even get all these chemicals out for us. This comes off of the Dow Chemicals CEO. He says Gulf petrochemical flows could take 9 months to normalize, even if the choke point upended and cleared out today. We're looking at a 9-month plastic disruption. I'd heard 7 months from others, so this even takes it to another couple months from there. So think about that. Everything that you have in plastic, from snacks to frozen foods, fresh protein products, fish, vegetables, anything that's wrapped in plastic is going to be at least a nickel or a dime, 10 cents more for every single thing you buy with plastic in it. And this should continue to increase based on what they're talking about disruptions. So it might be 10 cents today, but as we go along in the next 2 months, 3 months, if this thing continues, it could be 25, 35, 50 cents just for the packaging. Now, if you buy 10 items, that's an extra $5. That doesn't include the rise in food costs or delivery costs. That's just purely the packaging. So what if it costs you an extra 50 cents to get it to the store, an extra 50 cents for the packaging, and then the food itself went up 50 cents, so you're paying an extra $1.50 for the exact same thing per one? Or what if it's $1 extra for one and you're buying 20 of those? It depends on what your packaging needs are. And also this map is super easy to understand here. Anything in red is pretty much gone right now. Anything in the red coming off this map is delivered out through the Strait of Hormuz. So just subtract every red line off the map, and that's where you sit in disruptions. Plastics are going to get more expensive. And then they even say plastics emerging as the next major problem facing the economy. It's not about the petrochemical, or not about just the oil or the diesel or the jet fuel, the A1 jet fuels. It's about the plastics now. This is going to keep stepping everywhere you go. It's about the hydrogen. It's about the helium. Helium can't do, semiconductor chips. It's just going to continue to step on of all these products that normally come out. So here's the next one: plastics. Plastic is going to get way more expensive.
So what you're
And I
saying,
guess that's
so
it.
what you're
So
saying is that your 3D printed gun is going to cost a lot more now because
unless you
that's
purchased a
that
whole bunch of
PET,
plastics for
right?
that in advance, and you're sitting on like 100 pounds of injection mold plastic that's ready to go into it.
And then put the food aside. Think about all of the manufacturing that it takes 3D printing to do, because that's the exact plastic that they use for 3D printing. So any little parts for things to fix things, or at your automotive parts store, a lot of the parts are 3D printed with that plastic. So that means all of those products are going to go up. So all of the mom and pops businesses that are making little trinkets and little things out of 3D printed plastic, their prices are skyrocketing, and so all of that stuff will go up. But think about that too. You could just shut off manufacturing to those people that print certain items that may be unwanted as far as disruptive technology there that you can easily make through a computer and 3D printing, making your own parts at home because you can scan it and make that part.
Provided you're not running the software that can remotely turn your device off, or remotely cut access to the software that would allow you to print.
I mean, because
Again,
if you think about it, even if we got cut off from the products, but the plastic was still affordable, what would happen is people would start building these 3D print things to circumvent the parts reduction by making their own parts. I've seen people do it, instead of going to buy a part, or they no longer make the part, they just use the old one, they scan it, they make a new part, and voila, they didn't have to buy it from no one. That all ends if you can't get that plastic.
Again, repricing of your life. That's the topic of the show. It's happening in real time. Everywhere you look, there's a little bit up on every single aspect of anything you can do, from flying to deliveries to the diesel to the trucks to the plastics to the consumer electronics. Everywhere you look, it's just up a little bit for now across 100% of your life. What happens when it drags on for 3 more months and that little bit turns into a medium bit? And if it goes on for another 6 months and everything doubles? How are you going to afford it? Universal basic income. I've been trying to reset the economy forever. We'll send out the show notes of this episode. Please go to buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. Support us up there. Also, civilizationcycle.com, and we'll get you the show notes. So we ran through a lot of information tonight. I'll put the pricing structure in there of plastics increases. That is civilizationcycle.com. Put your email in there. We'll get you those 10 show notes of tonight's valuable information, so you can try to plan and make a game plan for your life moving forward with your families and your friends, so we can all just survive and thrive through these changes as our lives are being repriced. I'll see you next week. I do appreciate your watching and your valuable time. Ransom and I are